Okay, this is my last show as the cheap mark substitute, and we're going to start with the Truck of Love, a bit of boogie to get the Monday night going, and then we're bringing in the master. So stick around.
I was on the road in a lonely night when your seductive moon poured deep into my bones. I couldn't move, I couldn't fight as you sucked my fear into your coming light. You broke my heart and you took my soul, then left me alone to crumble on the side. The truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love. I've been broken by the broken truck of love. The truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love. I've been broken by the hungry truck of love. I believed in fairy tales, but I was waiting here so long. I come to think you had forgotten me. I gotten used to being alone, but then you came along with all your charms, and you lift me to your light. That's why I gave you everything, but you still ran me down. The truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love. I've been broken by the hungry truck of love. The truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love. I've been broken by the hungry truck of love. There were stars above, there was cold below. I heard my voice screaming, just get off the road. But I stood up, and I'm standing tall. So come on now, and chuck you turn. The truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love. I've been bruised but not broken by love. The truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love. I've been bruised but still want the truck of love. You think you finished me, but underneath my shell, my heart learned to sing the blues, and then my soul learned as well. Now I need a muse to sing, I need some light, so I'm heading back to the road, and I'm heading back tonight. The truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love. I've been bruised but not broken by love. The truck of love, the truck of love, the truck of love. I've been bruised but still want the truck of love.
And here we are. Hey, boss.
Is that the Florence truck we're looking at there?
Yeah, no, you were on that truck in Epic. That's the truck you got driven around Epic on. I think I think it was owned by the guy that used to do Where's Wally? Used to drive like a Wally and Freedom on the side of it. Yeah.
But I'm talking about the truck of love.
Oh, no, it's just something I wrote. Yeah. Just for a bit of
I
fun.
noticed it's left-hand drive, so it's OS.
Yeah, I nicked I nicked that off YouTube, and only realised later that's actually not Australian.
No worries. And just an interesting note on that: in the last 6 months or so, I've changed my car, and I've now got a daily driver that's got a VHF radio in it, which I just leave on all the time, and the truckies use that to let the other truckies know that there are problems.
Yeah.
So, for example, if there's what they call a flash for cash on the highway halfway between Stawell and Horsham, you'll find out about it. So that could be useful to know. So channel 40 on your VHF. That's have you ever wondered, when those truckies they steam past you, they're going above the speed limit. You think, you're doing that all day, every day. Have you still got a license? Well, that's how.
Yeah, that's right.
They tell each other where the enforcement activity is. So just interesting thing for people.
I think it's interesting when you're in the city. We used to have 1 hour's broke, but when we had one in the city, man, those truckies fight. There'd be racist fights going on, and they're both all giving as good as they get. You know, the Indians are giving as good as they get. The Australians, it's hilarious, man. I used to think this is like opera, like truck opera.
Yeah, and it's there's a bit of biff. I agree with that, but short range. As far as I know, they only go 5 or 10K. So if you hear something that's probably relevant to you,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Flash
absolutely.
the Cash, for example.
Flash for cash. That's a really good one. That's a really good name. Yeah. Shall we proceed?
Let's give
I love
me.
my new face.
You do?
Yeah. Did Mark make that one? Did you make that one, Mark?
Is Mark aboard? I know he's as far as I know,
I
he
haven't
was
seen
lost.
him yet.
He was lost in the outback of Perth, I think, with a German backpacker, last I heard. All right. Okay. So here's the contents list for the evening, and it looks like another 2-hour show, and it always is. And it's funny that because when Mark and I started, we thought, yeah, we'll see if we can get an hour's worth each week, and it's sort of grown. Some of the early shows were less than an hour, and I don't think we've done under 2 hours for quite a while now. And I worry sometimes, like often you get a day where there's no stories worth commentating about, and in fact, leading into this show, the first 2 days there wasn't a single thing that I cut and pasted and put in the slide set and said we'll talk about that.
Oh wow!
And I'm immediately thinking, okay, that's a quarter of my time, and I've got nothing. If we just repeat that another 4 times, there'll be nothing in the show. But yeah, plenty cropped up, and so we'll still manage to squeeze a show out here. And here's the list we're going to talk about. We'll start with a couple of beautiful examples of government overreach, and that being local government overreach. And I have my own problem with this with the council I'm with in Western Victoria, because they issue you 2 rubbish bins whether you want them or not. There's a red-topped small bin, which is a rubbish bin, what you actually want to put rubbish in. And then there's a twice as big recycling bin with a yellow top on it. And I never use the recycling bin. Why the hell would I? I got a wood fire. I can burn any packaging, and I just don't create that much rubbish.
Yeah.
And I think it was costing me like $400 or $500 extra on top of my rates, because when you get your rates notice, added to it is the waste charge for the bin and the recycle charge for the bin. So it says on them, pick a number, general refuse, $280, recycling, $220. And next to each of them, it says non-compulsory. So I thought that's good. So I went into the council and said, I never used the recycling bin. So I want to delete that. I just want the rubbish bin. And they said, well, you can't do that. And I said, well, yes, I can, because here's my rates notice. And on my rates notice, it says it's not compulsory. So the council then said, if you get a bin, it's compulsory to have both bins.
That's what I said about the meek inheriting the earth.
I said next to each one, it says separately, not compulsory, not compulsory. Guess who won?
They did.
The council bureaucrats, of course.
Yeah, that's right. The meek inherited the earth by bureaucratic force.
I had quite a few arguments with them about that, and said, look, I just don't need it. Why you insist on me having a bin that I don't want? Surely it'd be easier for you not to collect it. And they said, well, the reason we give you both bins is because if we only gave you one bin, you would increase the risk that people would put the inappropriate rubbish, in the bin. So, for example, if you've only got your rubbish bin, then you might be tempted to put recycling in the rubbish bin.
Terrible person.
So I said, I'm deeply offended by that because you're accusing me of something that's antisocial and probably illegal, and I want an apology. So they apologised. They apologised, but they still wouldn't relent.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, let me put this another way. I'm an old man with chronic injuries, and I'm having trouble moving the larger bin, the recycling bin. I'm having trouble moving that each week because it's too big and too heavy, and I'm old and sick. So they offered me supports for moving my bin. You know, they gave me a couple of options for reaching out for help. In the end, I said, no, piss off, cancel both bins if you like. And by the way, I said, given that I've done that, I probably will inappropriately dispose of what little recycling I get now. I'll probably either throw it out the window when I'm driving down the road, or I might even burn it. Thanks for your help. So anyway, so local government overreach. In this case, we've got a man fined, I think, $17,000 for cutting down a tree on his own property.
Wow.
And I've got another man who's threatened with a $750,000 fine for building an unapproved cubby house again on his own property.
I'm just saying, good evening to everyone, Jason and Jan and Bella and Adrian, Rachel, Joanne, Sue, everyone's in. G'day, guys. Leander.
And Joanne says she's threatened to cancel her bins as well because she gets 3 types of bins. Well, guess what? My council said next year there's going to be 4 types of bins. So it's going to be rubbish, glass.
3. One's a greens bin. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're threatening 4 bins next year. So I'm assuming they won't. I can do just as well with none out of 4 as I can with none out of 2. But they'll probably make that compulsory.
Times are getting hard, you know. They might find a lot of people are doing it.
I pulled that as well. I said, you realise I moved to the area.
Oh, Michael on a post for a candidate, Gaddy Burnett, in Tassie today. You want to check her Facebook post out, Michael? Can you send me the link, Gail, to cafelocked@gmail.com? She's not going to win if she got me on the post.
Yeah, you want to know the context of that?
Yeah.
Okay, so second story, the Victorian opposition suggested that because there's been a bit of social unrest lately, reference the Palestine protesters running amok in a Jewish restaurant, they said that the solution is to introduce a protest permit system where permits will be issued by the police. Now, do you trust the police to issue permits to protest?
Let me think. It's a hard one, no.
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 Well, we'll talk about that.
You mean a lot more in people that shot us want the right to have the permit? They might actually they might let us. They go, yeah, sure. Yeah. What are you doing Saturday?
Remember, we've sort of got that now in the legal circles, because if you take a case, you take a COVID case to court, there were numerous of these in Australia, by the way, where they just ruled no standing. In other words, the law said, sorry, you're not allowed to bring your case.
Yeah.
So not only not allowed to protest, but if you've got a legal grievance, you might not even be allowed to go to court with it. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah.
No standing. You got your shoulder dislocated by Vicpol, but nothing to do with us, nothing to do with you. You've got no right to sue because nothing to do with you.
You had that big dent in your head before you picked up your freedom sign. Hey.
No standing. All right, not easy being green. Where'd you say you were this week? New South Wales?
We're on the border of New South Wales and Queensland. We're up high. Just we left Yalada and we took the scenic route just to get off the freeway. So
now I'm imagining that it's all dry and dusty there, because we've been told for a while now that the rains that fall won't fill the dams and there'll be no snow and all that. So I'm pretty sure.
Here we are. We're there's nothing nearby to say where we are. We're near Namimba or Chillingham. Anyway, there's no, it's actually lush. There is everything is green. And there's even like what are those plants called that grow off other plants. The big staghorns. We've got staghorns growing off dead trees. There's just everywhere there's life. It's actually quite astounding to look at the forest and think, how could you even get through it? It's just, and there's bees and birds. You remember bees? Little things that go from flower to flower, make honey. So there's bees everywhere. It's actually quite beautiful. You're actually sitting there listening to birds. In Brisbane and Gold Coast, we didn't see any birds, I don't know why. Maybe it's because they're spreading poison over the whole place to kill the fire ants,
Yeah. Now, I don't believe you that it's lush, because the experts have been telling us for a couple of decades there's going to be no more rain. So sorry, you're lying.
Yeah.
All right, more not easy being green. Bad news if you're a Tesla Cybertruck owner, because apparently in the US, raccoons have been breaking into the tray area thinking it's a rubbish skip and there might be food in it. So, yep, you don't want to buy a Tesla for greenness. You'll find that'll happen. We've got another lithium battery fire in an aircraft, and these are a weekly occurrence nowadays.
Wow.
And remember, those same batteries are a daily occurrence of fires in major cities now as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying batteries are bad, but I am saying forcing the transition is causing risk. It's killing people.
Didn't they just lose another ship where one of the things caught fire?
Yep. There's been a car carrier every year for the last 3 years has burnt. That's right.
Yeah.
We covered that a few weeks ago, and
that's right.
According to what's going on with shipping, the fire procedure, if you're on a car carrier and you get a fire, the procedure is get off the ship as fast as you can, because you can't put them out.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, there's no way. Even if you surround by all that water.
No, because they'll burn underwater. You can drop a Tesla underwater and it burns because it creates its own oxygen, and salt water corrodes the battery and makes it short, which is where the energy for the fire comes from. Yep. We've got a story about heat pumps causing Legionella. So you know how we're not allowed to have real things that heat, like gas or oil anymore. Yeah. We've all got to go heat pumps. Well, just as we've known for decades that heat pumps, which are around the 50, 60 degree mark, they can harbour Legionella. It's common with air conditioning systems in buildings. And people can get pneumonia from that and die.
Yeah.
Well, they want heat pumps in every house now. We've got an update on Air India crash, and it's a partial, I told you so.
I've been watching that today. That'll be interesting.
I said at the time of the crash, I said, to get two engines shutting off simultaneously, you've got to have an external factor. You can't get two simultaneous mechanical failures. And it wasn't birds, it wasn't rain, so it had to be something commanded those engines to shut down. And the reports come out and said that the pilots shut the engines down. Now, I'm going to question that because I don't think they've really got enough data on that. But nevertheless, the engines were shut down deliberately by something, by either the pilots or the flight computers. What else we got?
Well, let's leave it till we talk, because I've been watching that too. G'day, Ron. Thanks, mate.
Jason Gillespie's popped up his head again. Dizzy Gillespie from South Australia. One of Australia's great fast bowlers, and moved on to be a coach subsequently to that. Well, he got a bit of a run in the press during the week because apparently he's Australia's first ever Aboriginal Test cricketer. Did you know that?
No.
I didn't know that to look at him. And according to Dizzy, he didn't even know it himself for quite a while. But there you go. We've got another winter respiratory virus vax shield story, this time about respiratory syncytial virus. And they've rolled out a concerned mother, and she's running the old "my baby died because of RSV, take it as a warning." So I'm actually going to respond to what she said in her story. We've got our How to Lie with Statistics segment, and we're going to examine the recent European heat waves, and got a beautiful example of fraudulent data there.
I just have to interject and say that I I struggle to believe that when you look at this man, you don't see Aborigine. I don't know what's wrong with you, Bruce.
Yeah, well, now at least now he's admitted it. We know to oppress him based on his skin color, don't we? Wouldn't have known otherwise.
Thanks.
So good on you, Dizzy. We've got a coming for your super update, and we get an update on that every week. And we've also got our Uslam bird update. Were you hosting when we talked about the Uslam bird?
No, I don't think so. It sounds can't remember it.
When I was an Air Force officer, there was this expression called flying up your own tailpipe. Oh, and that was where you were saying or doing something so ridiculous that eventually, you were going to circle around and disappear up your own tailpipe. Well, I Googled that, and that's actually a mythical story. The mythical Uslam bird, when startled, would leap into the air and fly tighter and tighter circles until it disappeared.
Oh, yeah.
It's sort of become a metaphor for things that are so stupid and ridiculous that
I get it.
So I've got a few examples of that. So that's the show this time.
Just going here. Yep.
Do you want to put Anna up?
Anna, yep. Where is she?
Bottom of the screen, 2021.
I got cheap marks. I've got stop sharing there. Now all I've got is you and this slide.
Oh, from the comments, I mean.
Oh, from the comments, yeah.
Yep.
I'm dark. Can I claim Indigenous? I can hardly see you, Anna. Who's saying that?
Now, I'm going to make a distinction there because there's two words that are used interchangeably and they're not. One is Aboriginal and the other one is Indigenous.
Yes.
Now, Aboriginal, ab means of and original means original. So Aboriginal means related to the original inhabitants. So that's what Aboriginal means. Now, Indigenous means to arise naturally in a given geographic area. Now, by that marker, by that definition, most of Australia's citizens are Indigenous. Ooh. Because I was born in Australia and I believe I arose naturally. I'm not aware that there was anything unnatural about my conception. So I arose naturally in Australia. So I am Indigenous. And if I'm not Indigenous to here, where am I Indigenous to?
Yeah.
So yes, you can claim to be Indigenous. You can claim to be Aboriginal as well, because the left have sort of shat in their own nests by refusing any sort of objective criteria. So it's a bit like, transgenderism. You can be a woman just by claiming you are. Well, you can be Aboriginal just by claiming you are as well. And there's no
I told you that story about Tom, didn't I? This is okay. Very, very quick story. I know I've got a long show to go, but this is just gold. So I have a friend and he wants to go for a course. It's like some course, I can't remember. And it's only like a one-day course or a few days course. It's $2,000. And he didn't have $2,000. And his friend said, just tell him you're an Aborigine. He goes, I can't do that. He goes, I'm not an Aborigine. He goes, they're not allowed to ask. They're not allowed to check.
Correct.
And so he did it. And then it only cost him $200. But when he went to the course was full of men, right? From front to back. African migrants, Indian, Pakistani migrants, white Australians, and all of them are Aboriginals.
Yep. And when I was booked into jail in Canberra, and they give you you go through your admission paperwork and somebody asks you the questions and checks the boxes, name, age, address, allergies, meds. And they came to the, do you identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander? So I said, yes. And the guard looked over his glasses and went, which? So I said, both. And he says, both. I said, yes, both. So he went, and he ticked a couple of boxes on the form, and then he read the next question, which was, would you like a visit from the Aboriginal liaison officer? We could end the whole Aboriginal grievance industry instantly if everybody just ticked that box. I've been ticking it for 20 years because
that's hilarious, man.
that's
I've always
the
wondered
way
what would happen when you tick the box. You know, whether it's like you're at the Crown Casino and suddenly the lights go on and you've won.
Well, you get a jackpot. That's right. That's right. Although, in my case, as my good friend Dave says, because he does the same thing. When my good friend Dave, he says, yeah, I'm Aboriginal, and when they look at him, he says, they don't get blacker than me.
Lynn, that's a yes, Lynn, I think.
Yeah.
If you can't beat them, join them. That's right, Anne.
Yep.
Anna.
The best way to change an unjust
Victoria.
law is to enforce it strictly. I think that was George Washington said that.
Linda's in. Everyone's in. G'day, Russell. Russell Lang. I'm black on the
Okay, and furry. Yep. Well, hell, why not? If you can identify as a different species, why can't you identify as a different race? Explain that to me.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's get into the guts of it. So here's the first of two stories about government overreach, and this time it's local government overreach. And believe me, your local government is every bit as capable of effing your life up as state or federal governments are. They're populated by the same petty bureaucrats who only believe in following the rules and don't care about spending your money in prosecuting you.
That's right.
So first off, in Clemsig in Adelaide, we had this story where a chap was prosecuted for cutting down a tree in his own property, on his own property. And you'll notice the segment of the Advertiser this is from the true crime segment of the Adelaide Advertiser. The true crime, this is a true crime story. And here's a couple of crime scene photographs. So there's the property. And there's the tree that was chopped down illegally. Okay, so that's the before shot of the crime scene, and that's the after shot of the crime scene.
It's a massacre.
So here's what the story said. An Adelaide tree removalist has received a hefty fine after cutting down a 50-year-old river red gum without approval. I should have underlined without approval. Levi Daniel Kinsman faced the Environment Resources and Development Court. They've got their own court. One of them got their own police force, eh?
Wow.
After he was found guilty of contravening the Planning, Development and Infrastructure Act by illegally destroying the tree at a Clemsig home. And the judge said, I have also been provided with photographs of the tree before its removal. It is a fine and attractive example of its type, and it was prominent in the location on a corner, and it did add significantly to the amenity of the area. So in other words, even though that was on private property, in other words, it was owned by the owner of that property, they didn't fully own it because the rest of the community had some sort of right to it, the amenity right. Now, I'm not arguing whether it was a nice looking tree and whether it's a shame that it's cut down. I'm arguing how it is that you can be fined $17,000 for destroying a piece of your own property.
Oh, my Lord.
Your own property.
Wow.
Who is the victim here? To have a crime, you got to have a victim. Okay.
Shh, Bill. Shh. Wow.
So, but apparently, just because you own it doesn't mean you own it. Because, really it's a community property. So it's really a communism, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you thought 17K was ridiculous, what about this poor builder who's been having a 10-year battle with council because he built that structure shown on the right. That's a 2-story cubby house. Now, this guy's a builder and he got approval to build this. He not only over-engineered it, he actually got council approval to build it. And for about 10 years, that was fine. Then the neighbour, for some reason, put in a complaint and complained to council that they didn't like the look of it. Again, ruined the amenity of their view, I guess. And so the council ordered him to remove it. And he resisted that order. And he's been told that unless he does so, he could be fined up to $750,000 for a compliant structure constructed on his own property, only on the basis that his neighbour doesn't like it and only discovered that after 10 years. Now, what sort of asshole complains about a kid's cubby house for a start? And suck it up, mate. You know, if you don't like the look of it, don't look at it. But the council is threatening him $750,000 fine if he doesn't take it down. And again, you know, we've discussed this in the past, but when I was arrested in Canberra, they started off with one charge. And then if you're going to be resistant, they just stack more and more charges on to try and scare you. And they do the same with speeding fines or parking tickets. You know, pay up, and if you don't pay up, here's the extra, and here's another fine, and they just escalate it. Yeah. Now, in criminal terms, that's called a burger with a lot. You know, if you dare to question your authorities, they just start stacking extra charges on to cost you more money and scare you. And I've got to imagine that the $750,000 fine for that has to be an example of that. Yeah, you know, that's got to be stacking burgers on. Because in what universe is even a refusal to remove that because the neighbour doesn't like the look of it? How is that a $740,000 fine?
I think that's a Trump moment.
They don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Just saying.
All right.
He's better than the goat.
Oh, I don't know. I think he's soiled his own nest a little bit lately. And
he's in a lot of trouble. We should talk about him. Everyone's talking about him, man.
And I haven't prepared it, but I will say, you know, I supported Trump early on. I was an early adopter of the technology and early investor. And Trump bought me a Mustang early on because I put a substantial bet on him the first time, which came off at long odds. But I tell you what, I'll criticise him when I think he's wrong. And I think he was wrong about vaccines, warp speed. And now I think he's wrong about Epstein. And I think he's batshit crazy for not doing what his base wants. You know, it just makes him look guilty. I don't know if he's guilty or not, but he looks guilty. And he promised.
I think if he wasn't on the list, it wouldn't be an issue. But look at all these pictures of him and Epstein, the mates, you know.
His base is not happy, and I think this is a very serious threat. And I agree. You know, you list all the things that Trump promised to do. What was he going to do? He was going to audit the Fed. That didn't happen. He was going to stop the Ukraine war within 24 hours. Well, now he's sending more weaponry there. He's going to release the Epstein files, the JFK files. Doge was going to come in and, you know, fix the budget. None of that's happened. So I'm starting to wonder whether we've had the old switcheroo and we've been sold a dud here.
The only thing about him, he's very entertaining. I mean, we've got a puppet in charge. And at least this puppet's entertaining. He's always up to something. You know what I mean? Biden there was no fun in Biden. You know. Yeah,
but I have the quaint idea that your politicians should work for you and you should be honest.
Yeah, I know. It's so old.
It's so old school. That's crazy talk.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy talk.
Yeah, Santa Claus is real, Bruce. He is. Your mum was wrong when she broke the news that he wasn't.
Is he in the files? I bet he is.
They got that image of him in a reindeer. He's never going to show his face anywhere again.
Okay, so next segment. This is the never let a good crisis go to waste segment. And that's a quote that's attributed to Winston Churchill. So as an example of that, this week in Victoria, following the restaurant invasion last week, where 20 Palestine protesters invaded an Israeli restaurant and turned tables over and stuff like that, the opposition leader here in Victoria has come out and said that we need a permit system for protests. These weren't protesters, by the way. These were criminals who did property damage inside a restaurant. Okay.
Yeah.
But within less than a week, the opposition leader in Victoria has come out and said, look, we've got to stop this happening. And the way we're going to stop it is we're going to have a permit system. So if you want to do that in a restaurant, you've got to apply to the police for a permit, and the implication being you won't get it.
Yeah.
Now, you and I presumably don't trust the police to be the arbiter of when a protest is allowed to go ahead.
I don't know why. They've got such nice uniforms.
Hugo Boss.
Yeah.
So, personally, I'm going to say NF way there. No way do I want the police in charge of whether the citizens are allowed to protest the government. Because as one of my COs in the Middle East taught me years ago, he said, you work for the person who pays you. And I don't pay the police. The government pays the police. And there was ample evidence of that during COVID. They weren't working for us. They were working for the government. Anyway, here's what...
yeah. But, I mean, to be the devil's advocate, I saw that they got a new promotional campaign. They're trying to do a new face for Vic Pol. So now they're calling themselves Neo Vic Pol. So that'll be...
No, they just trashed 50 years of trying. Yeah, like you pepper spray grandmothers and body slam people and open fire at the shrine. It's over, mate. Don't spend any more money on public relations. It's a complete waste of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, here's what the Victorian opposition said. So, opposition leader Brad Batten announced a proposal for a new protest registration scheme less than a week after a group of 20 pro-Palestine protesters stormed a Jewish restaurant. And he said that protests need to be registered with police to get protection. Okay.
Yeah.
So what if you don't get permission? Now, do you notice as well how quickly that came out? Less than a week after that happened.
Yeah.
They proposed new legislation.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, isn't that
happened
handy?
In Adelaide too.
Isn't that handy? I mean, did they work that fast, do you think?
Yeah.
So I think this is an example of a political strategy called problem, reaction, solution, which is a variant of the old communist Hegelian dialect. And I'm going to read, this is what AI told me about problem, reaction, solution. A problem is created or exploited by government. Public reaction is incited and a predetermined solution is presented as the answer. Get that? Predetermined. Yep. And the fact that they brought this out within a week or so shows you that, they were just waiting for an opportunity to roll this out. And maybe they created that opportunity themselves. And here's a few examples of that working in the past. So we had the Port Arthur massacre, and that's another rabbit hole that I encourage people to go down because there's a huge number of things that smell very stinky about that. And I think the possibility that that is a false flag has plenty of evidence behind it. There are a lot of things that don't add up at all about that.
It's coincidence, as Easterhouse says. Coincidence.
Well, at least they're not, what did my judge say? Curious.
Curious.
Okay, so we had the Port Arthur massacre. Never happened before in Australia. Big shock on everything. Unbelievable. Well, it didn't stop the government reacting pretty quickly because that was in April 28, 1996. And within 12 days, our government introduced sweeping new gun law changes. Within 12 days.
Now imagine if the government had to run that to get approval from the council. We'd still be waiting.
So you've got to question whether that, really was that a preformed solution that they had all ready to roll? You got to wonder.
Richard Ford asks, are Victorian public still scared, meaning of the police, or is the trauma taking its toll?
I think a lot of people don't trust the police. Whether they're scared of them is another thing. I think there's been a huge erosion of public trust and support.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another example of problem, reaction, solution, and that was from Christchurch in 2019. And the Kiwis they weren't as quick to the mark as we were with Port Arthur, but the response was the same. So you might remember we had the mosque attack in Christchurch, I think it was. So what was the solution? So within 72 hours, the New Zealand government agreed to a whole raft of new changes. And they had it all signed and voted on, both Houses of Parliament, and all done within 2 weeks.
Thanks, Joanna.
So again, do we really think governments act that fast, or is there some evidence that this is an example that this was a solution ready to be rolled out as soon as the problem reared its head?
Yeah.
So Port Arthur, Christchurch massacre. And in the case of the Christchurch massacre, the Kiwi government got what I call a twofer, or maybe even a threefer, because the victim group here was largely Muslims. So that allowed them to add to their gun restrictions. They added internet censorship. So if you post vision, because this was live streamed by the perpetrator, if you post vision on that, that's a criminal offence. And this man who did post it in Christchurch was sentenced to 21 months in jail. So we're not allowed to question or talk about what happened, in particular the motives.
Yeah.
So
I
they got that.
saw that video. I can't play it, but I was on a walk with my son, and it just came up on my Facebook feed. It just popped up. I wasn't a friend with anyone. It just popped up. So that's an interesting thing. Why were the algorithms sharing that? They must have known when it was live that it wasn't worth sharing, because if we were at a march and they heard some music on Rukshan's video, they'd shut Rukshan's video down immediately. And so the fact that it got out there, lots of people saw it, makes you wonder, well, why didn't the algorithms stop it? But we saw it. It was horrendous to watch. It was just surreal.
Sure. And it was meant to be. It needed to get out there so as the public could get behind the control measures.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
If the day before that you went to the Kiwis and said, we want to take away your guns, we want to censor your internet, how's that?
Yeah.
People wouldn't have said yes. But after the event, of course they will. So they got to not only take the guns away, but they got to shut down any discussion about what had happened and what the motives might have been.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But back to our Victorian protest example, and this is talking about problem, reaction, solution. So we had the was it October 7 attacks 2023 in Israel, where a whole bunch of Israeli citizens were killed by Hamas operatives who'd broken out of Gaza. Very shortly following that, the Albanese government gave 3,000 visas to Gazans to come to Australia. So that's the problem part, because we already know in Australia that there's friction between Muslims and Jews. So what better than at this extremely fraught time, what better than to import a whole lot of the one aggrieved party into Australia? They did.
Yeah.
And per capita, that was one of the biggest visa programs relating to this in the world. So that was your problem. Your problem was, let's import a whole lot of incompatible cultures. The reaction or the result was there was an upswing in anti-Semitic attacks, and that goes on to this day, and that is related to that conflict. Maybe not, I don't know if it's the 3,000 people they imported, but there were plenty here already who felt sufficiently aggrieved. You know, this is why the Palestine protesters turned over the tables in the restaurant. So there's your reaction bit. And so what's your solution? Well, there it is. Your solution is we're going to introduce a permit scheme for protests. Now,
Victoria's
the point of this...
like now, banning machetes and stuff.
Yeah. So, and again, why do we have a machete problem? Have machetes suddenly become more dangerous? 80 to 90% of these so-called machete attacks, which are not machete attacks, they are assaults with the machete. The great bulk of them are carried out by a particular ethnic group, which we've chosen to import into our country, despite knowing that they're culturally incompatible. So,
I have to. My kids were telling me when I went back to Melbourne that wasn't the case. They're saying that there's a lot of groups are using the machetes, but the Africans are just copying the flak. So I don't know if that's absolutely certain, because we did talk about this, and they said no, it's rife amongst. You basically got a disenfranchised group of young people, and they're arcing up. One of my barrister friends, he got house raided. And they took his car while they were all in the house, but they were all white guys, all 14, 15-year-old white guys. So it's, yeah. So I'm not sure I agree with that there fully.
I would say that 80% of the perps that we see casual glances of on the mainstream media, they might not be African, but they're often very tall, very thin, and very suntanned.
No, I get it. But, yeah.
So that's several examples of problem, reaction, solution. So the solution here is the government gets a protest registration scheme, so they get to clamp down on protest. And in the machete example, they get weapon control. Gun control, now it's knife control. Next thing it'll be like the airport where you can't take nail clippers through. Why has our country changed so much?
The airport took nail scissors off me the last time I flew up from Melbourne. I had a tiny little pair of nail scissors deep in my suitcase, and they took it off me.
Yep.
Which is a shame, because I was going to hijack the airplane. I said, I want you to fly me to stall.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Not easy being green segment. Now, South Australia, where I used to live, has just had a really cold and wet week. Unprecedented in winter, I might add. But they've just endured their coldest day in years in Adelaide. The coldest day in years. And they've had record-breaking rain.
Yeah, Perth's been the same. My parents told me it's been the coldest there on record.
And don't the doomers love these sort of doom words? It's a rain bomb. What does a rain bomb look like? Is it 1,000 pounder? Is it a 2,000 pounder? Or is it, I don't know.
It's one of those dam buster bombs, just bounces across the countryside and then hits the city.
Polar blast, rain bomb. They love these emotive terms. Okay. Don't they love that? Okay, so why is this bad for the Greens? Well, it's bad because they've been telling us for decades that this isn't going to happen anymore. There's Dino Prof Tim Flannery, nearly 20 years ago, who used to tell us that even the rain that falls isn't going to fill our dams and river systems again. Even the rain that falls. How well is that aged on the east coast of Australia? Well, this is only this year. They're getting record-breaking rains. I guess when you want sort of future predictions about the weather, if you ask a paleontologist, you might maybe have made your first mistake anyway. But why do we listen to this guy? Why does he still get airplay? And 7 years after that, he was saying there'd be no more ice in the Arctic. And he said it was going to be free in 5 years from 2013. So by 2018, there was going to be no more ice in the Arctic. Well, I haven't been to the Arctic, but I'm pretty sure it's not ice-free. And the Antarctic has certainly got increased size.
It's increased about as much ice as the state of Texas, I heard.
Right.
And all of that is about a mile thick.
Yep. And the Doomies also told us 25 years ago that there wasn't going to be any snow. Do you remember the old, our children will not know what snow looks like? They told us that in 2000. Now, they subsequently updated that because it didn't happen. And then they said by 2020, it was all going to disappear. So, enjoy your snow because by 2020, there won't be any.
Yeah.
Well, how well's that aged? Hasn't aged well in Victoria, because Victorian snowfields are having one of their best ski seasons in a long time. Big dumps of snow. So
Must be really
why do
hard
the
when the weather doesn't comply, you know?
why do the experts keep getting all this thing wrong? And why do we why do we listen to them? And B, why do they never get it right?
Why do we call them experts?
Well, they're a bit like the COVID experts. It's because they're prepared to stand in front of a camera and say what the politicians want them to say. No, the reason our experts get it wrong all the time is because they're telling us about models. And models are not data. Models are predictions, and garbage in, garbage out. Your model can only produce what its component parts, when put together, can produce. So
It's funny, Cheryl.
They put data into the models, and they want them to come out with certain answers, and that's what they get.
Yeah.
And people like Ian Plimer, who say, well, that's bullshit, and I'll tell you why. Cancelled, not allowed to talk. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So these people are wrong all the time, and yet they want us to radically change our lives to comport with their predictions.
Why are you getting everything wrong? Michael, I love you, but please stop this guy from talking. Hi, Carly. You don't have a friend there, Brucey?
Well, is that the new pseudonym for Dr. Daniel? Can you do a bit of? They're gone now. Was that Carly? Was that Carla?
Carly.
Carly, tell us what you think about myocarditis and vaccines, just so we can do a little screening there and work out sort of perhaps where you're coming from. All right. More bad news on the green front with this story from the US that says raccoons are breaking into the tray area of Tesla Cybertrucks because they think that they're rubbish bins. And so they're actually chewing and breaking their way into the back area, looking for food, just like they'd break into a rubbish bin. So, and I guess in Australia it's going to be the bin chickens or the galahs doing it, isn't it?
The ibises, yeah. I actually like those birds.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, it could be worse, of course, because it could be bears. And
oh my God!
This story from, I think, Alaska 10 years ago, where a guy flew into the Alaskan wilderness, and I think it's a piper cub, and went hunting.
That's right.
And when he came back, a bear had tried to break into his aircraft
to find
food, and as you can see, had absolutely shredded it. So yeah, it could be worse. Couldn't it?
So he flew it out with. That's hilarious.
Yes, it was. This is how they flew it out. I don't know if there was a delay. God. They basically gaffer taped the whole fuselage back together and flew it out. Now, I doubt if you'd be carrying that much gaffer tape with you, so there might have been some intervening steps. But isn't that beautiful?
If only Air India had that.
All right. Now, what Air India probably didn't have was a lithium battery fire, but lithium battery fires on aircraft are a weekly occurrence now. And I challenge anybody who hasn't seen a lithium battery actually overheat and burn. Maybe next time you get your phone and you're going to trade it in for nothing because you're getting a new one, just take it outside and get a spike and open the battery up and whack a spike into the battery and sit and wait and see what happens. Because I've done this. I did this as a training exercise at the CFS in Adelaide. And so, you can spike the battery, you damage it. And for about 30 seconds, nothing happens. Then you get this tiny little wisp of smoke comes out of the spark, out of the defect. And then within a second or two, it turns into a flare. It goes off with massive heat, sparks, flames. It's just like that. And that's a phone.
Here you go. I'll 2 secs. Remove that. Put that up. There you go, Brucey.
Oh, play it.
Yowzers.
Thank you for finding that. That is exactly what I had in mind. So that is why, if that's your laptop in the overhead luggage compartment, by the time you smell smoke, it's doing that. If that phone's in your pocket, by the time you think, oh, it's getting a bit warm, it's burnt through your clothing and dropped.
Yeah.
So that's why. And the reason I show this is because these things are being forced on us everywhere, and they're often in cheap things made from China. So e-scooters, etc., etc. And when these things do this, in a building, in an apartment block or whatever, they're dangerous and they can cause fires that kill people. And our wise rulers are pressing us in this direction ever more without acknowledging the fact that there are risks with this new technology and it's not ready for market. Doesn't matter. Just all got to have electric cars, electric bikes, electric everything. Electric chains. Yep. So be aware, huh?
I've seen those scooters fire up. Yeah, man. Yeah. Not in person, but online. My God.
And thank you so much for finding that clip, because that literally is exactly what I demonstrated.
I just got a producer's badge, producing a video within the time.
Yeah, well done. Okay, so here's another story in the Not Easy Being Green segment. And you'd be aware that they are trying to take away flame and radiant heaters. So gas cookers are going, gas hot water's going, and it's got to go all electric. And as part of that, there's a great push on what they call heat pumps. Now, a heat pump is basically a reverse cycle air conditioner. So even if it feels cold outside, it's not 0 degrees Kelvin. There's some heat out there. So your air conditioner is a pump that pulls some of that heat from the outside and puts it in your house or in your water heater or whatever. Use electricity to do it. And so you can warm your house or your hot water by pulling heat from the outside and putting it in the inside with a heat pump. Okay. But look at this story. There's a problem with this, because when you do that for hot water, you can create a beautiful environment for Legionella. And we would remember in the past multiple examples where, a group of old people goes out somewhere and half a dozen of them get sick and die from Legionella because that was in the water of the restaurant or whatever, or the hospital or whatever. So again, these technologies that we're being forced into, you can't have gas hot water anymore. In some states, I think still in Victoria, new build houses can't have it. You're not allowed to build a house with gas hot water in it anymore. You've got to have some sort of electric system.
Or cooking, I think.
Yep. And cooking. And you ask a chef in a restaurant, if what's the best way to cook? I guarantee they'll tell you it's gas. Just the characteristics of it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love cooking with gas,
But no, you're not allowed to have that because we've got to save the planet. The problem is saving the planet is killing us. And that was an example. And this story reminded me of something that we had to learn when I was an anesthesia trainee. And that is, we had to learn about heat transfer. And the reason we had to learn about that is because when you are anesthetized, you lose control of your body's heat production. We're called homeotherms. So you regulate your body temperature to around 36.9, 37 degrees. You regulate it. But if I anesthetize you and put you to sleep, that's one of the things your body stops doing, stops monitoring its temperature. Now, in addition to that, you're probably naked or nearly so, in a room with your arms and legs out with not much covering on, so the surgeon can get at you to attack you. So you lose heat and you don't, you lose the ability to regulate your body temperature. So as an anaesthetist, one of my jobs was to monitor your temperature and to keep it within a tight range, because you don't want somebody having surgery and waking up 3 degrees colder, because it's really bad for you. We're not designed to operate. So as part of my training, we had to learn about heat transfer, and there's basically 3 types, and I've got them up there. So you got conduction, radiation, and convection. Now, conduction is direct heat transfer. So if you put your hand on a hot stove, the heat on the stove goes straight into your hand by direct contact. That's called conduction.
Yeah, learned that.
Badly?
Yeah, as we all did.
Second thing you got is radiation, and that's where infrared rays travel through the sky. They travel through the air, and they transfer heat from the source to you. And that can even travel through a vacuum, which is how heat from the sun gets to the earth. And finally, there's convection, and convection is hot air. So if you blow hot air over somebody, they get warmed by the hot air. So conduction, radiation, and convection. And they're pretty much trying to do away with radiation as a heat source to save the planet now.
Yeah.
And this is counter to nature, because throughout human evolution, for the great majority of the time, the way we warmed up was through radiation. You either got radiant heat from the sun or you got radiant heat from a fire. Okay, so we are evolved to be impinged upon by infrared rays, radiant heat. And standing in front of a fire or standing out in the sun is health giving and natural, and we know it, because if it's a winter's day and the sun comes out, you go and sit in the sun. If you're in a building, you go to a pub, and even if the air's warm, if there's a fire in the corner, you'll go and stand in front of it because it's beautiful. You can feel those rays penetrating into your body. Okay, so that's natural, and those rays actually penetrate deeply into your body, like several centimeters. So they deliver effects into your muscles and into your body. And that, for example, is one reason when you go to the physio, one of the things they might do is use infrared or other forms of heating to get heat into you. So we are evolved to get a benefit from radiant heating, and we instinctively know that it's important for health. And yet our wise masters are trying to do away with that and turn us all over to being convective heated. So if you're in a warm room where the air is warm because you've got a reverse cycle air conditioner, warm air blowing over you, that's convection. There is no infrared rays hitting you and penetrating deep in your body. It's not the same thing. It's not what we're evolved to. And it's very likely that there will be adverse health effects from depriving us of those infrared rays. And that's completely ignored by our wise rulers, who just say you can't have fires, you can't have gas, anything that produces infrared. It's becoming bad. I mean, heaven forbid if you want to have an electric radiant heater, they're going to make electricity so expensive. No way you could have that.
Yeah.
So this is unnatural, and it's likely that there'll be adverse events that we don't even know about.
Well, we've got a diesel heater in the bus. It's a Chinese one, but they're fabulous. Really cheap to run. Really good. Power out the heat. Very simple. Yep.
I put one in a caravan years back, and they are great, but that's still warm air heating. That's convective heating. Yeah. And yes, whilst if you're cold, it's nice to have hot air blowing over you. It's not as nice as standing in front of a fire or nuding up out in the sun. And if you're interested in that topic, do a search for this guy on YouTube. That's Roger Schwelt. who is a sleep physician, light physician, and I think a cardiologist in America. And this is a 2-hour podcast, but it's fascinating. And it talks about all of the things that we are doing in the modern world that are different to how we're evolved. So we've just talked about one of them, and that's not using radiant heat, using other forms of heat. The color matters as well. So when we were hunter-gatherers back, millennia, you went to bed when it got dark and you got up when it got light. So when it started to get light, the sun went up and you had red light above you. And then it turned blue. And it was above you. And that combination signaled to you that it was daytime. And then, the sun would track over, it would go down, and then you'd all sit around the fire at night getting that lovely infrared. So instead of having blue skylight above you, you had red light below you because the fire was on the ground. So the combination of those two things are very important in setting your circadian rhythms and your sleep-wake cycle. Well, we do the opposite now. So in the modern world, we jump out of bed when the alarm clock says. It might be black. We flick a light on. We've got bright light above us. We go into our office. We're in bright light all day. We come home. We sit in front of a TV or on a phone, which is blue. That's unnatural. It's probably a reason why a lot of people get insomnia is because having blue light in your face tells you that it's daytime.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing.
Fascinating. If you've got 2 hours, look this up. There are just so many things that the modern world does that are counter to how we evolved, and clashes are occurring all the time. Okay. I thought that was fascinating anyway.
It is fascinating. I am fascinated, honestly. I'm just, we had a big show last night, so I'm a little bit weary. But I'm trying to understand what's going on here. Rachel Key, I don't fart, she's cold. But I've sort of come into the end of the conversation.
I'm going to let that one through to the keeper, and I might get Dizzy Gillespie to talk about that shortly. Okay, slight shift here. This is the "Your government is fascist" news, and in recent years, labelling people fascists or Nazis has been done often by the left and usually incorrectly.
Yeah.
So
always.
Leftists love calling conservatives Nazis.
Yeah.
Well, leftists, if you want to look it up, Nazis were leftists. Nazis were socialists. You know how we know that? It's in the name. Nazi is the German National Socialist Workers' Party. Okay? So that's how we know that Nazis were leftists, because they admitted they were socialists. As Ben Shapiro says, it's in the name. Okay. And similarly, the word fascist is thrown out. People like you and I who just want freedom and to be left alone, we're labelled fascists.
Yes.
Makes no sense.
True.
Do you know what a fascist is? If you want to know what a fascist is, ask the guy who invented fascism, Benito Mussolini. And I've got his bio on my shelf there somewhere. And Mussolini in Italy in the 30s and the 40s said the definition of fascism is the marriage of the corporation and the state. So fascism is not about freedom. It's about big business and big government oppressing its citizens. That's what fascism is. So leftists, don't call me a Nazi, don't call me a fascist, because you're just proving you don't know what you're talking about.
Like Bunnings and Macca's and all the big businesses staying open during the lockdowns, but all the mum and pa stores had to close down and go out of business.
Now, I'm going to give you a gazumping strike there.
Oh, bugger.
Because I was going to come back to that, but I've got to flick back, and you're exactly right. So big businesses, and this is a newspaper article during COVID, and it's exactly that. Lots of small businesses were told to close. Whereas the big box stores, Dan Murphy's, Bunnings, etc., were allowed to stay open. That's exactly right. So you had this sweetheart deal between big business and government that allowed them to trade. And, of course, we had a sweet deal between Big Pharma and government too that forced us to buy their products. And Gail Sorbian there saying private-public partnership is fascism. Absolutely. They're not even trying to hide it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I started this segment with this story. So the Australian government here has loaned Wesfarmers $100 million. And Wesfarmers, by the way, owns Bunnings. And the government loaned Wesfarmers $100 million to put solar panels on its roofs of its businesses and EV chargers in the car park. So that was what it was for. So this again is government and big business teaming up together to achieve something. Now, the rest of the story said the loan will be paid back by Wesfarmers over 7 years at a competitive interest rate. Well, I'm calling BS on that, because if this was a competitive deal, if this was no different to a commercial arrangement, then Wesfarmers should have gone to Westpac or CBC or whatever and said, we want to borrow $100 million at a commercial rate to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they probably didn't do that for two reasons. One is it's probably not a commercial rate. They're probably getting a sweetheart deal for this. And the other thing is the big banks probably said, no, we're not loaning you money for that. That's a bad idea. So, yeah, this is exactly an example of fascism between our Australian government and big business in the state.
Yeah, I'm doing the same, Valerie.
Yep, very. And what did that say? It said weaning off sunglasses.
Yeah, she's weaning off sunglasses. I've been doing that too.
And I've had in my stack for a long time. One of the other things that experts have done in the last few decades is they've demonized sunlight.
Yeah.
You know, slip, slop, slap, don't go outside, all that sort of stuff. If you do what's natural, which is if you get up with the sunrise, and we don't all do that, but if you get up with the sunrise, your body knows that the sun's just come up because you've got this very light sky that's slowly increasing intensity. And so your body's got several hours before the sun gets strong. And because it knows, okay, now it's time, it's daylight, it does all sorts of things, including making antioxidants, which are partly driven by those infrared rays from the sun hitting your body and telling you we're going to get hit by ultraviolet. So it starts making antioxidants. And so if you rise with the sun and get that gradual exposure, you are much more resistant than you are if you spend your day inside a building and then suddenly go out into it when you haven't had those hours of preparation. So, yep. And sunglasses are part of it. So, you know, we've been battered into slip, slop, slap sunglasses. Otherwise, we'll all die of cancer.
Well, it's the industry, isn't it? Huge industry, sunscreen,
yeah.
Huge industry, sunglasses.
And conveniently, of course, it stops you making vitamin D.
Yeah, which we're all low on.
We're all low on vitamin D, and vitamin D is important not only for health, it's also a precursor to testosterone, in case you didn't know.
Wow.
It's one of the precursor chemicals for steroid hormones. And so, again, our government doesn't want us to be healthy, and it certainly doesn't want men making any testosterone. Yeah. They're going to be different.
Wow. That's
and in fact, almost everything you can name that our government is pushing at us is going to reduce testosterone. So statins, statin drugs for cholesterol, foods, soys, etc. All of those things impair testosterone production. And the government's okay with that because they certainly don't want any troublesome males out there, do they?
No.
Apart from all the ones they keep importing. All right. Okay, let's flick to the update on a story from a few weeks ago, which was the Air India crash.
Yeah.
And I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, I went down a sieve and said, here's all the things that could have caused it. So we saw the Air India aircraft take off and then within 10, 20 seconds, just lose thrust and sag back to the ground and crash. So it lost power in both engines because, modern aircraft can climb on one engine, even if they're fully loaded. That's one of their requirements. So here was my list of what could cause it. Well, you could have an unrelated mechanical problem in both engines at the same time. Something broke in both engines at the same time by coincidence. engine failures are so vanishingly rare in aviation that to have them all happen simultaneously impossible, wasn't that?
Yeah.
You could have a fuel issue. You could have fuel exhaustion. You ran the plane out of gas, or you could have contaminated fuel. Now, we know they didn't run out of gas because they're just taking off on an 8-hour flight, and there would be like 50 tons of fuel in that aircraft. So if by mistake it had almost no fuel in it and they'd ignored all of the fuel gauges and all that, when they pushed the thrust levers to start accelerating, it would have been a bloody drag car. It would have been a rocket. And they would have gone,
so light.
oh, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Yep. So they would have noticed. So that wasn't the case either. And contamination as well. If you'd filled the plane at the last stop with contaminated fuel and then took off and they just simultaneously, the bad fuel got into the engines, that can't have happened either, because not only are there filters and sensors in the fuel system, but when a jet airliner like that starts the engine at the gate, it starts one of them and runs it for a while, might be 15 minutes while the passengers are boarding and the baggage and all that. And then only when they're ready to move, they start up the other one. Yeah. So one engine would have been sucking on the bad fuel for quite a bit longer than the other. So it would have failed first, not simultaneously. Something else has happened in aviation is you get a single engine failure and then the crew makes a mistake and identifies it as the other engine and shuts the wrong one down. And that's what caused the Kegworth crash in the UK 25 years ago. Now, we know that didn't happen here because the view shows the aircraft taking off and then just sagging back to the ground. If they lost one engine on full power at takeoff, they get a sudden yaw before they corrected it with the rudder. So that film would have shown the aircraft suddenly yawing if they'd lost one engine. And even if they had, they don't do any troubleshooting on takeoff. They power up and fly up to a safe altitude and then run the checklists. So there's no way do they accidentally do that. You can fly through birds or volcanic ash or rain. None of those things happened. Number 5, deliberate pilot action. There have been several examples where pilots deliberately crashed their aircraft. There was the Germanwings crash where the co-pilot waited until the captain went for a loo break. Then he shut the cockpit door, and remember, they're now reinforced, so you can't break through them. And then he just flew it into the ground.
Yeah, I remember that.
So that you think that's a possibility. And finally, what I put a ring around because I thought it's most likely is there was some electrical or computer failure whereby the engine management system told both engines to shut down at the same time.
Have you heard the time today?
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the update.
All right.
So at the time, that's what I pinged it as. But I think the only two possibilities were 5 and 6. Either it was deliberately done by the pilot or it was deliberately done by the control system without the pilot wanting it. And in fact, today, yes, the update says, the report says that shortly after takeoff, the engine number 1 fuel cutoff switch was flipped off. And then a second later, the second engine was flipped off. So jet engines are a bit like diesel engines. They don't have an ignition system as such while you're running them. So you don't just turn the key off and the spark goes and it turns off. You've got to turn the fuel off to shut a jet engine down once it's warm. I mean, there's an ignition system when you're starting.
I've got a picture of it there. That's those 2 buttons there.
That's going to be your
second. Have to be pulled up. And then, they can't be just switched off. They actually have to be pulled up and moved and dropped down into position.
That's your second strike. So the reports come out and said that these switches were moved on takeoff. First one, then the other, a second apart.
Wow.
Now, what the report does not tell us is whether the switch itself mechanically, physically moved there in the cockpit.
Yeah.
Because remember, when you flick that switch, that doesn't shut the fuel down. That's an electrical switch that sends a message to the flight management computer that then closes the fuel valve. So we don't know whether, when they say those were shut off, we don't know whether that happened in the cockpit or whether the computer did it and nothing happened in the cockpit. Now, in either case, this cannot be an accident because the switches themselves, you're right, they are made so that if you knock them, they don't move. You've apparently got to pull them up, pull them backwards, then push them down. And in addition to that, they have guards on them. So you cannot accidentally knock these switches, let alone both of them. And the fact that it happened a second apart sort of fits with one of the pilots doing it deliberately, because you imagine you've got to operate one switch and then you've got to move your hand and operate the other. That's probably about a second apart. So that makes sense. But part of the problem is that they then found in the crashed aircraft, they found that switches were still in the run position. Now, they've told us that's because the pilots then flicked them back into the on position. Now, if you're trying to kill yourself, you wouldn't let the other pilot. If your co-pilot reached over and turned the fuel off and the other pilot reached over and turned them back on, you'd be grabbing the hand to stop it because you're trying to crash the aircraft. So that doesn't make any sense.
No.
And in fact, if you want to crash the aircraft this way and you're flying, why not just point the nose at the ground as you're taking off?
Yeah, that's right.
Or
right.
wait for the captain. So I don't buy this. I still think we don't know whether the switches move mechanically or the computer shut the valves, and they're not specific about it in the report.
Do you think Air India would be very interested in trying to make sure, however they could, that this was pilot error or deliberate pilot action in order to try save their company?
No, Air India wants this to be a mechanical failure, and Boeing wants this to be pilot action.
That's true, Earl. The voice recorder said, I think he said, why did you turn it off? Why'd you turn that off? Or something.
He didn't say the fuel. He said, why did you switch off? Now, they don't tell us which pilot said this. They've told us that the co-pilot was flying the takeoff and the captain was monitoring. Now, they know this from the audio. They must know which pilot said this. They haven't told us. Why not? And let's face it,
they must know which one turned off first, because I was watching the video and they said literally it's almost, you need all your fingers to do it.
Yeah.
There's no way you can just do both.
The left-hand switch turned off first, and then a second later the right-hand switch.
Left hand, okay.
And I heard some discussion which said, by lots of airline pilots who said, okay, when I move any switch, I move the closest one first.
Yeah, of course.
So the captain sits in the left-hand seat, so that suggests that the captain did it.
Hey, Mark.
And then a second later, the other switches moved. So if that's true, then one or two things happen. Either the co-pilot said, what the hell?
Yeah.
In which case the captain then lied and said, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Or the switches didn't move at all. And when the engine started to spool down, one pilot said, why did you drop thrust? Why did you switch off? Because you're looking out the window on takeoff. You're not looking down at the panel. So I don't know.
Well, the other thing too is that, like, say we were doing it together, it takes a second, but a second's a long time.
It is.
You're trying to kill me and I'm looking down. When you've switched one off, when you go to switch the other one off, why wouldn't I be fighting with your hand going, what the hell are you doing? And putting it back on.
Yeah. But if I'm trying to crash the aircraft, I don't have to do it with the switches. I can just turn the control column at 400 feet. It's in the ground a second later.
That's right.
So I don't buy this, and I'm still waiting to hear, did the switches in the cockpit move, or did the flight data recorder record that the computers shut down the fuel and they're labeling that the switches were switched off?
Yeah.
They must know. They're not being specific about it. Why aren't they being specific about it? It's because they're trying to hide something. Can you put Victoria up there? Victoria Tonnet?
Yep.
Manchester
piloting being one of them. Unfortunately or fortunately, is a cooker just like us.
That's correct, Victoria. I am a cooker, and I've got my own page in Cookerpedia to prove it, and it's an absolute hoot. So
Cool,
I do
man.
suggest you go
Do
there.
I have
You must have. Yeah, I bet you do. Look up Wikipedia. The site's down half the time.
Wikipedia?
I don't know who wrote it, but it is fabulous. So have a read of it. I think one of the funniest things.
Oh my God, it's here.
I'll give you a second. Bring it up.
Yeah, okay. I'm just doing it now. Oh, I haven't heard of it. Oh, I think I have heard of it, but I just never go to these things.
I bet you've got a page. You've got to be an official cooker, otherwise, it's almost like the Australia Day honours.
Remove this. There's the main page, so I'll just have a look through. Resources for finding cookers. Our current database of cookers. I wonder if you're under Bruce or Dr. Bruce. Bruce. No, that's Buddy. That's Buddy. Oh, Buddy.
Here we go.
Bruce
One up.
Paix.
Oh, it's up there. So you do a search for that. Is it just a search for cookerpedia.com?
Yeah,
or
Cookerpedia. Yeah. Airport
I
incident.
I congratulate whoever wrote it. It's the best piece of satire I've seen in a while, and I encourage you all to read it.
Michael
Have you got
Gray
one as well?
Yeah. Double agent allegations. No rumors or reports. Personal life, nothing. Yeah.
Works for Mossad.
Wow. Cafe cooked.
Is Hoodie got one?
Smaller in real life than he looks on the screen. Hoodie, no. Oh, I must be under Graham. Yeah, Graham Hood. He's got a mask on. Admiral Graham Hood, Theodore Hood. Baptizing people. There he is with hair. Crippling porn addiction. Together they help others with their addiction.
Which he admits, by the way.
Yep. Yeah, he got a bigger one than me. Yep. It's got his weight, 55 kilos. Oh, he's a bit bigger than 55 kilos, I think.
Bigger chap than that, yep.
The first time we had him on, Damien and I, it was a big thing because it was like we hadn't interacted. Hoodie was doing well. Damien and I would do, there was the two shows. Anyway, we reached out to him and said, "Do you want to come on?" He said, "Yeah, I'd be delighted to come on with you boys." So he came on, and I remember saying to him, because I really admired what he said about porn addiction. So he just came on, and I said, "I just want to say first, Graham, I'm in awe of the courage you had to admit you had a porn addiction, because Damien too here is addicted to porn, but yet he hasn't been." And it was a test. What? Sorry, you can't hear?
No, I'm good. But it just, totally, it neutered that attack line. So I respect him hugely for that as well. Yep.
I put it back up. Anyway, you guess you had to be there. It was funny.
All righty. So enough of Air India, but I don't think we've proven that the pilot shut the engines down yet. I still think it's possible, and in fact, probably likely that this was actually a computer malfunction.
That's good, Jason. I like it.
All right, switching gears. Are we? There's Carla.
Carla, yes. Mark's
Carla,
on holidays, Carla. I'm filling in.
Doesn't Carla normally log in 2 hours too early or too late? I think we better keep rolling.
Yeah.
So this story during the week, Australian cricketer Jason Gillespie is in the news this week, and he's busting a myth, and he's busting an Australia Day myth, apparently. So what is that myth? Well, the myth is that Australia Day wasn't always on the 26th of January. So people who are agitating to keep the date are missing something because it's not really the date anyway. Now, if you read the story, what he's arguing is that sometimes it was the Monday after the 26th, which seems like splitting hairs to me, but that was why he was in the media this week. because he's busting the myth apparently. And his credentials for busting that myth are that he is the first Australian male Aboriginal Test cricketer. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Well, apparently he is.
Yes.
And I didn't know that either. And I've certainly watched him bowl a bit, and I didn't know that. But if you read through the story, here's what it says. The great-grandson of a warrior of the Kamilaroi people from the northwest of New South Wales, Gillespie had a mother of Greek heritage. Okay, well, that's a bit indistinct, isn't it? So he's a great-grandson of an Aboriginal warrior, but his mother had Greek heritage. So is they trying to say his mother was Greek? Or was maybe his mother's great-grandmother was a Greek warrior? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, this page, the famous birthdays page, gives us a little bit more information. And I did a lot of Googling on this, and all it said was that Jason Gillespie has Aboriginal heritage. There was almost nothing about any other heritage that he might have. But this page said that his great-grandfather was Aboriginal, which means he's 1/8 Aboriginal on that side. And it implied that his mother was Greek because it says his mother is Greek.
Yeah.
So if that's true, then he's half Greek and 1/8 Aboriginal. So if this story is correctly reported, I've just got to ask, why does he put so much stake in his Aboriginal heritage? Why is there so much media of it? How does this give him the credentials to tell us about Australia Day? Any more than his Greek heritage, which in fact appears to be 4 times stronger. So why would he ignore his Greek heritage, and why would the media ignore his Greek heritage and just tell us that he was in fact the first Aboriginal Test cricketer? So what's the motivation for that? What's the motivation for that? Well, I'm wondering if this is the motivation, because Gillespie's got a son, and his son is Indigenous as well. See this? Jason Gillespie says young Indigenous cricketers like his son need more opportunities. So maybe that's the motivation. Maybe his 1/16th Aboriginal son needs special programs. Maybe that's the motivation.
Well, I remember reading about young Aboriginal going from boyhood to manhood, and they cut his, or was that Mandela? They cut his foreskin off with a bit of broken glass. So I think if his son is ready for cricket, we should get to watch that as he becomes.
Yep. Well, he's proud of his Aboriginal heritage, and if that's an important part of it, right. Assuming there's no children watching at this time, do a Google search on whistlecock and see what you think of that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to move on a bit. I'm going to move on to health news. And you probably noticed in recent weeks, they're trying to scare us about winter respiratory disease, and they're trying to shill vaccines by doing it. And this story from Natural News takes the other side of that story, because it tells us that the new RSV vaccines now are required to have a health warning for Guillain-Barré syndrome. So that's a sudden, probably autoimmune paralysis. Okay? So that now has to be a warning in the packet because it's apparently that likely. So here's what the story said. The UK health regulator has issued a warning for 2 RSV vaccines, that's respiratory syncytial virus, Pfizer's Abrysvo and GSK's Arexvy, after 21 cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome. Okay. So question, should we be worried? So I did a bit of digging, and yes, we should, because both of those vaccines are on the market in Australia, and Arexvy is recommended for pregnant women. Now that's a catastrophe anyway, because no experimental meds should be recommended. And Abrysvo is recommended for adults over 60. So, yep. So I looked a bit further into that. Remember, this one is recommended in pregnancy. So I looked up their data, and it says there is no human data on the effect on fertility. So they're recommending this for pregnant women with no data. In addition to that, there's no data on effects of male fertility. So, and you might be aware that a recently released study has shown a 1/3 drop off in successfully completed pregnancies in, I think, Czechoslovakia or the Czech Republic for women who took a COVID shot.
Yeah.
They've had and there was like more than 1 million in the study. So this is RSV vaccine is being recommended in Australia for pregnant women, despite the fact that they have no idea what its effects on fertility in either sex are. We just don't know. And I looked on the Pfizer website as well, and I noticed that they had a safety study linked there. So I had a look at that as well. And what it says is that they did a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial of the vaccine. And that's extremely unusual because the vaccine industry normally attempts very heavily to never do proper studies.
Yeah.
And I dug through it a lot. And here's some of the details. Number one, this is, a study for a vaccine that's recommended for pregnant women. It only involves women in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. So that's the last third of your pregnancy. Now, by that point in your pregnancy, there's very little risk of malformation because the baby's already fully formed. It's just getting bigger from then on. That's why, some extremely premature babies survive because they're basically fully formed babies. They're just not very big.
Yeah.
So this study only chose low-risk women to study it on. The next thing is they didn't look at the results in the mothers. So they gave this to pregnant women, and then they didn't look at the health effects in those women. What they were looking at was what happened to the babies. So they weren't even looking at the women they gave the shot to see whether they got sick. And thirdly, they said it was a placebo study, but nowhere in the study do they say what the placebo was. Now, a placebo is meant to be saline. It's meant to be completely inactive. And the vaccine industry's got a long history of fraudulently claiming that something's a vaccine, a placebo, when it's not. So, for example, they might get their new vaccine, which has got the vaccine bit in it, and it might have aluminium and preservatives and polyethylene glycol and a whole bunch of other things in it, which could be toxic. And they make a placebo by taking out the vaccine protein and giving you the rest. So rather than giving you saline as your inactive component, they give you the vaccine with all of its ingredients except one, and they call that the placebo. So if, as in the case with autism, if we think aluminium is a big part of the problem, they could well give you the same amount of aluminium in the placebo as in the test drug and call it a placebo.
Yeah.
And then when they compare the two groups and they say 20% of the kids became autistic in both groups, therefore it's the same, therefore it's safe. That sort of trick they've pulled in the past multiple times. Anyhow, back to the story. If this vaccine can really cause Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is this probably autoimmune paralysis, how might that happen? And we've discussed that in the past with adjuvants. Now, an adjuvant is something you add to a vaccine to trick your immune system into thinking you've got a real infection. So if you give just a dead protein, your body doesn't raise an immune reaction to it because it's not an infection and it knows it.
Yeah.
So you have to give it something else called an adjuvant to trick it into thinking it really is under attack, and then it raises an immune response.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with adjuvants is you're setting off the fire alarm in your immune system and it doesn't know why. It might be that tiny little injection you got with micrograms of protein in your arm. It might be the peanuts you just ate. It might be the grass pollens that you breathed in, et cetera, et cetera. So you can very easily create allergic reactions to other things. And I think this is a major cause for food allergies, peanut allergies, et cetera.
It's nuts. The amount of allergies is nuts.
Yeah. So that's an example of how an adjuvant can cause immunity where it shouldn't. And sometimes your body, when you set off the immune fire alarm, it says, holy crap, what do I have to take notice of? It might look at your insulin producing cells and say, that's the threat, and might make antibodies to your insulin producing cells, which is how you get diabetes type 1.
Yeah.
Or it might make them to some component in your spinal cord, which could then cause paralysis. MS is probably an example of this as well. So my question was, okay, does this vaccine, which has now got a Guillain-Barré flag attached to it, does it have aluminium in it? Because of what I've just talked about. Because if it's got aluminium in it, that could well explain it. And I had to do a ton of digging to find out that, yes, it does. Because if you look on the website, it tells you that it's an adjuvanted vaccine, which means you've added this immune fire alarm to it. And then it lists all the components. So can you see aluminium anywhere in that?
No.
So I looked down and I thought, oh, well, bugger, that doesn't explain it. But finally, AI gave me the answer.
Oh, sorry.
Because it says that component, 25 micrograms of 3,0 desacyl 4' monophosphoryl lipid A, brackets MPL, that is absorbed onto aluminium hydroxide. So they've hidden the fact that there's aluminium in this, probably because aluminium is getting a bad rap, and I had to really dig to find it. So there you go.
That's incredible. That's how they hide it. I just said in a piece I wrote today, they've got an mRNA factory that's pumping out 100 million vaccines a year in Victoria. But the way people treat vaccines, it's almost like, I said, why don't you just convert it into a church? Because you've got this mad ideological belief that vaccines are almost holy.
Well, it's a religion.
Yeah. I was actually thinking, I wonder if the Romans used the word, when they called someone a Christian with derision, it was the equivalent of when they call us anti-vaxxers.
Yeah, well, yes. Okay.
Guillain-Barré, Victoria. Or Guillaume.
So, Guillain, or Guillain, I believe that's French. So hot on the heels of that, they pushed out this story, which was a go and get vaxxed shill story. And it was in the usual form. So the Adelaide Advertiser pumped this one out. And they've given a platform to this mother where she criticises anti-vaxxers.
Persuasive anti-vaxxers. That's the next level up.
And she does it because her infant son died of pertussis or whooping cough. Okay. So the implied thing here is you bastards killed him because so what does the story say? So if you read into it, it says 10 years ago, our baby boy died from whooping cough. Riley was just 32 days old, too young to be vaccinated. Correct. Not too young for a Hep B vax at birth, by the way. That'll be fine.
Just in case he decided to go down a Grey Street and pick up a hooker.
Yeah, with and share needles. And yes, you're right, Catherine. 1 month old is too young to be vaccinated because this kid's got virtually no immune system. They're still just booting it up, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely too young to be vaccinated. And so given your kid's got a still developing immune system, the key thing for immunity in this early stage of life is transfer of maternal antibodies from the mother as colostrum. And that happens in the first day or two after birth because it's the first component of breast milk. So, question: Did you breastfeed? Because that's far more.
Not me personally.
That's far more important.
But my partner did.
That's my question for Catherine Hughes. Rather than blaming all the anti-vaxxers, ask yourself that question: did you breastfeed? Because that is the most important thing you could have done for a neonate.
I also heard that like babies like putting things in their mouth, picking things up off the floor, which we freak out about, but that's actually them acclimatizing to their environment.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's the hormesis model. Yeah, you get exposed to, kids should sit in the dirt, not in, bubbles. Correct. So the other thing in there is she said that the pregnancy whooping cough vaccine, this is the one you give to the mother because the kid's too young. So if you're going to vaccinate, you've got to vaccinate the mother. It wasn't yet available for free across Australia. So she's sort of implying that the reason she didn't take the vax herself is because it wasn't free. Someone else has to pay for it. So
that's right.
Really, was that really, if you believe vaccines are important, was that really a big decision factor here? Like, I'd love to stop my baby dying, but shit, not if it's going to cost me.
Probably about the same cost as those sunglasses.
Okay, what else was in the story? She said, since COVID-19, we've seen a snowballing of misinformation from us dirty anti-vaxxers. Yes, Catherine, we have. But the misinformation came from government and big pharma. It didn't come from us.
No.
We were right. Secondly, in the US at least, anti-vax groups have massive budgets. Really? How big's your budget, Mark? Michael? Oh, he's back already. How big's your budget?
You're looking at
How big's Woody's budget? How big's my budget? How big's Pfizer's budget?
We don't talk budgets because it depresses us.
How big's the FDA's budget? Are you really saying that us anti-vaxxers with our massive budgets are just buying the science? Seriously?
From big pharma.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
I know, it's crazy, man.
All right, what else does she say? She said, us dirty anti-vaxxers try to position themselves as defenders of freedom and choice. You bet we do. That's important, especially when the government's wrong. And we profit from fear.
We profit from fear.
Who created the fear, darling? With those tense, disaster-style body count press conferences every day with the Oslon arm waver trying to distract us from half the screen.
Look at Tara Ezza. I was a snoozer until COVID woke me up. Now I'm shouting from the rooftops that I'm a proud anti-vaxxer. Thanks to the government. Welcome aboard, Tara.
Yep, welcome aboard, Dr. Dan. Sorry. Yeah, look, I'd been down a lot of rat holes, but I had not been down the vax rat hole until COVID. And what woke me up was just my knowledge of history and just noticing tyranny staring in your face. And that's what led me to look into it. Anyway.
Did moths fly out, Martin?
So we are profiting from fear. How much profit have you made out of this? Apparently, we are selling products and generating advertising revenue. It's not us that's selling products. It's Pfizer that's selling the products. And
maybe if they would allow me to promote marijuana, there's a few people I could sell things for. But apart from that, no one can advertise it with us. They just can't. We have a few mum and dad industries that might, but apart from that, no.
We get demonetized. Like I said today,
right.
Brett Weinstein on his recent podcast, Dark Horse, fabulous podcast, he talks about in the early stages of COVID, they demonetized him. And this is after he lost his job in an American university because he was attacked by the woke crowd. And he's a left-wing Jew. Like he's your classic woke, but they even went for him. And he was just starting to bring in a new income stream with his 500,000 people on his podcast, and he got demonetized. So he lost his job. He built a new income stream. Then YouTube cancelled it. So how are we generating advertising revenue when we get demonetized? Seriously? And this is all printed in this story. People read this. I mean, who is this woman? This is all BS. You know,
I got a favorite joke now about it's about censorship in Australia. So if we're posting to Rumble, the vaccine's bad, it's full of nanobots and other stuff that can kill you, so don't take it. If we're posting to YouTube, safe and effective. It's safe and effective. And
that's the right question for any vaccine. Is it safe and effective?
Right. Yeah.
But is it, not it is the right question.
Now, the best ever thing, I use your comment a lot. I say to people, if the first one didn't work, I sound that you said it. I said, Dr. Paix goes, if the first one didn't work, why would you take the second? And if the first one did work, why would you have to take the second?
That's right. And what are we up to? 5,
Sorry.
8? Who knows? Who knows?
Sorry that I've got common sense. I haven't been able to let go of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Explain it to me as if I'm an idiot. Like, okay.
That's right. You persuasive anti-vaxxer, you.
Okay, what else?
PAV. Hey, that's our new thing. I'm a PAV. What's that? I'm a persuasive
anti-vax.
Proud anti-vaxxer, yeah.
Hashtag anti-vax pride. There you go. New hashtag. Now, Catherine also.
Anti-vaxxer Pride Month.
Catherine, we need a flag. We need an anti-vax flag, and we need a Pride Month.
Yeah.
Get your graphics people onto it.
Hey, Anna.
What else?
Anna, we've just been waiting for you to turn up.
Yeah, we're at 61. Should we go back to the start?
Yeah, that's right.
Now, 60. What else did Catherine say? She said social media algorithms amplified our voices. This is just nuts. We got deplatformed.
We have an FOI from E. Karen herself saying that a third party is censoring us on Twitter. They sent us that.
So, so far, there's not a lot of hits in this hit piece, are there?
We should. What's her name? Catherine Hughes.
Yep.
I think it's about time we wrote something about her.
Yeah, they won't publish it.
She is.
They won't publish it.
Yeah, no, but we can publish.
All right. A couple other things from the story. It said immunisation rates are falling, and diseases we once had under control are surging back. Which ones, Catherine? Which diseases? As a result, families are facing unfathomable heartbreak. And she also says that before routine immunisation, 1 in 10 Australian children didn't make it to their first birthday. Look, that might be true, but was it the vaccines what saved them, Catherine?
What year was that?
The article.
You know, what year was it when 1 in 10?
What'd she say? Before routine immunisation. So you're mainly in Australia going back to the 50s, I guess. You know, diphtheria pertussis came in a bit earlier, depending on where you were in the world. But okay, so what am I replying to there? Okay, so diseases we once had under control are surging back, and they're surging back because it was the vaccines that, you know, stopped all these kids, these 1 in 10 kids.
Manado, yes, I do. I really do remember that, Manado.
So here's a couple of graphs for that person. So pertussis, which I think is what she says killed her baby. This is a graph of death rates in kids for pertussis, and you'll notice that it had almost dropped away before the vaccine started. It was on a steep downhill, which just continued when the vaccines came in with no discernible change in trend. Now, on the right of it, you've got diphtheria as well. So Diphtheria appeared to be well on the way out the door when the vaccines came in. And there's nowhere on that graph. If I took away those lines and said, you tell me when vaccines came in, you couldn't tell me.
Yeah, that's
because
right.
there's no change in trend. And in fact, that's pretty much true for any vaccine preventable disease that they bring up. So measles almost stopped killing kids before the vax came out. Scarlet fever, there wasn't even a vaccine for it, and it still was the same shape. Typhoid, limited vaxes. Polio almost disappeared before the vaccine campaigns came in. And polio is a whole other story from another day. But again, we got sold a dummy there. We got told that this was a hugely, dangerous epidemic, and vaccine saved all these kids.
The ball is wild. The ball is wild. The 50s. They started spraying the birds for mosquitoes with DDT, and then mysteriously polio shows up. Yeah, I've heard that theory too. The ball
Absolutely.
is wild.
And they did two things at that. It appeared that was the cause. Now, when they rolled out the vaccine, they changed the definition of polio at the same time. So prior to the vaccine, any kid that got paralysis in the setting of an infectious disease, they called it polio. After the vaccine, you had to have paralysis, and it had to persist for a much longer period of time. And I think you had to pass a certain test as well. So they, at the same time as rolling out the vaccines, they also made it much harder to attach a polio label to the same syndrome.
Yeah.
So there you go. So I've shown that
bloody data. Just,
pretty much
up every sense day,
Pick any infectious disease that was defeated by vaccines, and you'll discover that if you take away the arrow that says vaccines started here, there's no trend change. They were all dropping away, including diseases for which there was no vaccine. And that even includes scurvy. This was scurvy in England from 1900 up to 1970. Exactly the same line. So by 1960, the kiddie vax era, scurvy had been defeated.
Yeah.
Now, scurvy is a nutritional disease. It's not vaccine preventable. So the reason all of these diseases got better was not because we rolled out vaccines. It's because of these things. Society got richer. There was far less poverty. Nutrition got better. Sanitation got better. Housing got better. Hygiene got better. So life expectancy improved because life improved. Kids stopped dying because they were malnourished and cold and living in close proximity and playing with dead horses. Not because of vaccines.
You can have mine, Richard, while you're there.
So given that the vaccines didn't cure all of these infectious diseases, then stopping vaccination is not going to see them all come running back at us, despite what the story says. We've seen a resurgence of vaccine preventable diseases. Which ones?
Yeah.
And don't say COVID, because it's not vaccine preventable.
They come out, they say, oh my God, measles epidemic in progress. And when you read the articles, like 2 kids have it.
Yeah, or 8. Used to be every kid.
Yeah, every kid. I had it.
Yep. And in fact, again, a story for another day, but it's much better to get measles as a child than it is to get it as an adult. Mumps is the same.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Now, I've said that because all of these childhood illnesses were not cured by vaccines.
Did you know he's dead, Richard?
Now, taking vaccines away isn't going to see these diseases come rushing back because it didn't stop them in the first place. But what we might see disappear is vaccine-caused diseases might go away. So I'd like to see what SIDS and autism do over time if we genuinely were to dissuade everybody from vaccinating. And we don't want to do that. We just want a choice. I respect parents' decisions about their children, even if they're idiots, because government are bigger idiots. Sorry. And if I don't allow the government to be patronising and say, we know better than you, so you have to do this, then I can't do that either. So the parents are the ones who are responsible for the children. They should be making the decisions, not the government and not me. All I want is a choice. And of course, that's not what they said during COVID. They didn't say, look, we just want everybody who wants a COVID vax to be able to get one if that's what they choose. No, they said no jab, no job. That's what they said.
No jab, no life. You're out of society.
All right. Poor old Catherine. And that just brings up no jab.
She did lose a child. She must be grieving. I get it.
And nobody's saying that kids never die of any of these things. The questions are they vaccine preventable? Do the vaccines work? And are the vaccines safe? Those are the questions. And just pointing to one kid that you say died of X doesn't mean that every other kid should have got vaxxed. Because we're trying that now. What's happened? They're all getting SIDS and autism. Okay, so final thing she said. She said that the people, people making decisions out of vaccines need honest, trusted information and the chance to ask questions and be heard without pressure or judgment. Well, hallelujah, Catherine. My only question to you is, how does no jab, no job fit into that? How does single source of truth fit into that? How does sacking me, jailing me, censoring me, how does that fit into that, Catherine? Did people get to hear what I had to say without pressure or judgment? No, I was ruthlessly shut down and I was right all along. All right, enough of that segment.
I'm just on the Australian Bureau of Statistics, just trying to see how many people died of whooping cough last year.
Of or with?
Of or with, yeah.
And remember, there's a strong association between SIDS and early child vaccination. Yeah. None of those kids would be labelled vaccine deaths.
No, that's right.
Okay.
I'll go here now.
I'll wait for you to bring that up.
No, can't see anything here. Nothing I can find that talks about it. Diabetes, yeah. Yeah, it might be there. It doesn't have a thing of anything saying that there's been any deaths. They said there's a surge, but it's not really. It's
deaths or cases.
It doesn't even have a thing for whooping cough.
Yeah. And remember what I said. For almost all kids, these childhood rashes and spotty diseases are 1 week of snotty nose. Almost all of them. And there's evidence that going through that as a child is beneficial compared to avoiding it and then catching it as an adult. And I gave the example of mumps. Mumps can make males sterile if they get it after puberty. If you get it at age 5, like every other kid, you don't run that risk.
Yeah.
And Gail's exactly right. So, yep. There's a strong association between SIDS and sudden death, and vaccines. And I'm sure it's causal. Because
I always
as
think the SIDS death of all the young adults that went to jail saying that they'd shaken the baby, which has been
murdered their kids, or
been proven to be bullshit. But
exactly,
if you're a young dad and you come in and your baby's blue, you're going to pick it up. You are, you're freaking out. But it's just, I just think that to protect the product, they've put all these grieving fathers in jail and destroyed their lives.
Yep. Now, Valerie had a question about the difference between whooping cough and croup. So whooping cough is an illness due to, I think, Bordetella pertussis, which is a bacteria. And it gives a characteristic cough where the kids go cough, 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 cough. And that indrawing of breath, which is getting to me, that's the whoop. Whereas croup is just that squeaky or croaky voice that young kids get when any sort of inflammation happens in their airways. So bacteria, virus, whatever. So they're not the same thing. Because whooping cough is bacterial and because part of the mechanism of it is a toxin, they can make you immune to that toxin, and that toxin doesn't change, unlike viruses, which change all the time. I think we better keep moving.
I can't open a links, Donna. So I'm just keeping up with the comments, Bruce.
No worries. So this is another segment. This is the lies, damn lies and statistics segment. And that was a quote attributed to Benjamin Disraeli, former British Prime Minister of over 100 years ago.
Wow.
And this example comes from Joe Nova's blog. And in Joe Nova's blog, she points out there's been a huge number of deadly heatwave stories coming out of Europe. And they're all coupled to the climate change done it because we've been bad themes. So there's multiple examples of it there. You know, lots of extra people have died because of the heat waves. Extreme heat is a killer. Excess deaths from the European heat wave. Okay, there's the stories that have been pumped out in the last few weeks from Europe. Here's the problem. The experts had already published on this, and they'd already told us that 10 times as many humans die when it's too cold than die when it's too hot. 10 times as many. So you're far more at risk from cold weather than hot weather. And in this graph, the blue lines are cold weather deaths and the red lines are hot weather deaths from a whole bunch of regions.
Wow.
In every case.
Even moderate cold is the biggest killer.
Even Australia. Look at Australia. Far more deaths due to cold than due to heat.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That'd be Melbourne.
Okay. Okay. Now, the previously august medical journal, The Lancet, which used to be one of the big 3 or big 5, you know, if you could get a publication in The Lancet, it's like getting your kid into Harvard. You know, it was a very prestigious thing because they had an extremely high reputation. Unfortunately, they've turned into global warming and vaccine shills in recent decades. And they published this graph where they purported to show that heat did cause a lot of deaths. So even in this graph, you can see there's more deaths on the blue side, which is cold deaths, than there are in the red side. Yeah, vaccinated son got whooping cough. I'll come back to that. Let's read the comment. Our vaccinated son got whooping cough at 7 and he was jabbed. He had 4 weeks off school. The unvaccinated kid was sick for a week. Yeah, well, is it safe? Is it effective? Of my first 2 questions. Doesn't seem like it's 100% effective, does it? And remember, most of the adverse events are not counted as vaccine events. So if your kid gets a peanut allergy, nobody labels that as an adverse effect of vaccination. Your kid gets SIDS, nobody labels it. So there could be this huge burden of adverse effects from vaccines, not just the benefits. And the studies don't look for it. The studies don't look for it.
Eczema. I know I have a great friend. He is covered head to toe in eczema. The carnivore diet saved him, actually. But he said it was vaccine related.
Inflammatory foods. Okay, so back to this graph. So the vaccine shill journal, The Lancet, did a recent story where they were telling us how bad it was that extreme heat was killing people. And they published this graph, which even this graph didn't show that heat was more important than cold. And you've got a whole bunch of countries lined up there, one after another. And in every single country, there are more deaths when it's cold than when it's hot. There are more extreme cold than extreme heat deaths. But they've sort of fleshed it out to the point where, you know, there's a fair bit of bulk on both sides of the graph. But remember, the segment here is called Lies, Damn Lies and Statistics. Here's how they lied about it. If you look carefully at the axes at the bottom of the graph there, the coal deaths, they've used a 250 axis. So to get out to the very edge of it, you've got to have 250. Whereas the hot deaths, they've got a 40 axis.
Oh, my God.
So with only less than 1/5 of the depths will make the bar just as big.
Yeah, wow.
That is complete and utter fraud. Because they've constructed a graph that is deliberately misleading.
They don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Well, I actually think they do.
They know exactly what they're doing. But anybody who glances at that graph in a journal they will never notice the fact that they've fudged the axis. And in fact, if you redraw that graph so that the axis is the same, it goes from what you see on the left to what you see on the right. So if the scales are equal, it's obvious that far and away the biggest problem with excess deaths is cold, and that heat is almost nothing to do with it. And in fact, if you got a bit warmer,
oh my God.
So if it got a little bit warmer, you would transition people from the died of cold to the not dying at all side. So this is utter fraud, and this comes at us.
Absolutely. And they call us misinformation. That's the thing about it, you know?
Yep. And we've spoken before, they fudge the temperature. You get a spike when a jet aircraft goes over the temperature thing. You get a blip for a minute where it goes up 5 degrees Celsius, and they say that was the temperature for the day.
Yeah.
They've got their thermometers at airports. It's fraud. It's utter fraud. And that's before they just outright fudge the data and just make it up.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of fraud, we've got they're coming for your super segment, which gets a run every week. And this story from the Australian details how self-managed super funds appear to be better than industry funds. They seem to be more profitable.
Wow.
And it warns them that the consequence of this is that you're going to get taxed more heavily. So the government has noticed that SMSFs are an even more attractive pot of money than industry funds. So they want their cut out of those as well. And remember what the principle is here, and that is Mark Twain. Mark Twain said, "A fine is a tax for doing wrong. A tax is a fine for doing well." So the government's saying, because you've done well with your investing, which remember is to pay for your retirement, so you're not a burden on society, we're going to fine you. And I used to get fined all the time in my super because they used to compulsorily take a certain percentage out of my income every year. And because I was on a good wage and I did a lot of hours, it meant that I always contributed more than the allowable limit. I didn't want to give them anything. They stole it out of my income and forced it into a super account. And then they said, you've contributed too much. So they fined me 15% of the difference every year. They took the money, they stole the money off me, and then they fined me because they stole too much. Yes.
Shouldn't be funny, but
shouldn't be. And this story from the Winnipeg Sun, of all things, shows that finally somebody's got it. The reason governments have to keep stealing money from citizens all the time is because that's how they pay for all of these programs. And the story says, stop pretending the government funds anything. We do. Wow. I'm going to read a bit from the story. So let's clear something up. There is no such thing as government funded. That phrase gets thrown around too often in press releases and campaign speeches, as if it describes some magical pot of money the government pulls from the clouds. But every cent of the government spends comes from you. It's taxpayer funded. It's money taken from your paycheck, your gas tank, your grocery bill, your property, your business. Every government program, every announcement, every investment they brag about is done with your money. So the bigger government gets, the more of your money they have to steal. And given that was the Winnipeg Sun, that's from Canada. But here's an interesting thing. They've said we now live in a country where the average person works until June just to pay their taxes.
Wow. Wow.
Now, it may be the same here because, you know, you've got your income tax, then you've got your GST, then you've got all the fees and charges, et cetera, et cetera. They said small and medium-sized business owners are crushed under a pile of forms, fees, audits, payroll taxes and levies, where provinces like Manitoba continue to grow their bureaucracies while basic services falter. Our emergency rooms close without notice, our roads crumble, our courts are backed up, and yet governments at all levels act like more spending is the only answer.
Yep.
How much of that fits here? I've got a relative in Mount Barker Hospital at the moment who's been there 2 days waiting for a transfer to Flinders Medical Centre, and Flinders does not have a bed.
I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at that comment. They're saying that that's Elon's colon.
Yeah.
That's killer, Andrew.
That could be colon.
So they can't get a bed for 2 days.
Yep. So she's now gone to a ward bed in Mount Barker, but prior to that, she was in the emergency room for nearly 48 hours with a serious condition, waiting transfer for specialist care at Flinders. And Flinders for 2 days haven't been able to take her. So she's been sitting on a bed. And that's an example. Our emergency rooms close, our roads crumble. You know, I've just upgraded my vehicle because I'm scared I'm going to damage the other one through the potholes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. And yet governments act like more spending is the only answer. That's why Jim Chalmers wants more of your money. You know, they forced you to contribute to super for your whole working life. And then right when you might need it, oh, sorry, we've got to take a big cut out of that. You've contributed too much. Oh, dear.
Oh, I've interviewed this guy. He's great.
Who is that? Yes.
It's the Reef Rebel. He's a doctor. He walked away, a scientist. He walked away.
Peter Reed.
Peter
Reed. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So
guy.
This is our Uzlam bird segment, and I mentioned that at the start. This is the things are so ridiculous that you fly in ever smaller circles until you disappear up your own tailpipe. Well, here's a few examples from the mainstream media. So climate change is causing albatross divorces and shrinking goats. Apparently. Experts say
albatross divorces.
I didn't read it, and you're not allowed to ask any questions. This is the questions without response. Climate change is worsening sleep apnea, snoring. Did you know that? And in fact, it got so ridiculous after those two things. I went, I'm just going to type into my search engine climate change and then pick a random word. So here's a few examples. So I put in climate change in olives, and the AI said climate change is significantly impacting olive production worldwide with rising temperatures, erratic rainfall, and increased heat waves leading to reduced yields, blah, blah, blah. So that's climate change in olives. All right. Now put in climate change in football. Climate change poses a significant threat to football, impacting players' health, game schedules, and infrastructure. Okay. What about climate change in tulips? Climate change poses a significant threat to both wild and cultivated tulips. What about climate change in water beetles? Climate change is impacting water beetle populations through shifts in their geographic ranges, changes in body size, and alteration to their life cycle. This climate change thing is really dangerous, isn't it?
It's bad, man.
What about climate change in poodles? It says climate change is impacting pet dogs, blah, blah, blah. And then talking about poodles, their breed characteristics like a dense coat and potential for brachycephaly, short nose, can make them more susceptible to heat stress. So unlike humans that die when it's cold, maybe dogs die when it's hot. And this is my favorite. Have you heard of Godwin's law?
No.
Godwin's law is the rule that when your opponent introduces Hitler into the discussion, they've lost.
Okay.
That's Godwin's law. So I typed in climate change and Hitler. And sure enough, neglecting climate change is like letting Nazis take power. So I challenge you, put any word in there and you will get a climate change is bad and it's affecting this story.
I'm just having a look.
Love tulips. Oh,
I actually found one that climate change doesn't affect. So I'm going to bring it up just to show you that Google does have a line in the sand that it doesn't cross. So I'll just remove this for a sec. And that's, can you see that? I'll read it out. It's climate change and butt plugs. There is no direct relation or no connection between climate change and butt plugs. This appears to me a misunderstanding. Climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns, primarily due to human activities like burning fossil fuels. Butt plugs are the under-hubs excuse for violence.
They put climate change and transgenderism in there.
Sorry.
You need a glass of water?
This is great. Climate change. Here we go. They're saying that transhumanism will offer will use technology to enhance human capabilities to overcome limitations, intersects with climate change in complex ways. So they're basically saying they're going to redesign us so that we can survive climate change, you know?
Why not just hack us? Novel Harari style.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we should be moved that they've gone to this so much trouble for what they call useless eaters. I mean, there must be some part of them that at least they think about us.
All right. Pop me back on screen and we'll finish this out. So this story explains that evil climate deniers like you and me are basically psychopaths. We have narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy in our personality profiles. So It's not that we're right and that their science is BS. It's just that we are evil psychopaths. That's the only explanation.
That's great.
Then we got this poor pilot who could no longer be a pilot because of climate anxiety. Every time he took off, he was worried he was going to kill Mother Earth, so he couldn't be a pilot anymore.
Oh, my God.
And there was this story, and thank heavens, this is not a climate change story. So this story from The Guardian tells us that the donkey skin trade in Africa is undermining gender equity.
Huh?
I didn't read it. But at least they're not blaming climate change here.
Huh. Donkey skins.
Yep. I didn't know there was a market. You know, lovely floor road you've got there. Maybe
never bought a donkey skin coat. Can't think of donkey skin boots.
And I should think not, you gender equity denier.
You Machiavellian psychopath.
All right. And to finish on a positive note, this meme I saw today, because it's really what we're all about. So they are counting on you to stop talking about the truth. They are counting on you being too tired, too hurt, too stressed, too distracted, too busy, etc. They are counting on you giving up. Don't stop, no matter how long it takes.
Yeah.
That's what they're counting on.
I think disillusionment is one of the weapons of communism. You know, they just make you give up.
And nobody cares. It's just all grey and and on that topic, is Kelly Stevenson in the house?
I think she's asleep. Stevenson, you asleep? Yeah, she's gone, man. Oh wow, 832 stickers.
832. The truth will set you free. Kelly, I pulled a Shakespeare book off my bookshelf today because I went, I don't remember that book. And it was full of 832 stickers. And I think that was planted there by Kelly.
I'd say so.
Probably to set me up for the next federal raid.
Yeah. Just when they thought they had nothing, they picked up Shakespeare. They got the symbol of the resistance, 832.
Yep.
Yeah, there's Okay, so next week, Mark will be back. We're not sure on the time yet. He's not on tonight. He's probably lost in the wilderness. Maybe he can hear us, but he can't get a signal. So good luck, Mark. There's but he'll be back with that, and then they'll decide on what time they're doing and stuff like this. So tomorrow I'm interviewing a woman about, get this, it's about koalas, because after all these years of going, koalas have chlamydia, koalas is endangered.
Yep.
Victoria is now shooting koalas from helicopters, 1,000 of them.
Yep.
From helicopters, koalas. We're shooting koalas. Our biggest sort of soft furry toy that we sell to the world, the number one soft toy, the cutest animal in the country, and Victoria is shooting koalas.
And I'll give you a South Australian flavour on that. 20 or 30 years ago, they had a koala plague on Kangaroo Island.
Oh, yeah.
Because as far as I know, KI doesn't naturally have koalas. They're an introduced species.
Yeah.
And they're in plague proportions on the island. So rather than doing the sensible thing that you just talked about, which is shoot them, they actually instituted this program of koala vasectomies. I'm not kidding you. Which went on for years, if not a decade. Made absolutely no difference to the koala numbers because, it doesn't matter if half the boys are shooting blanks, the other half aren't. And the rate limiting step is the number of women, not the number of men when you're trying to build up.
Calling them in New South Wales too. Holy shit.
So after they'd done that for political reasons, of course, we had the Kangaroo Island fires, which I spent more than a week fighting on KI 5 or 8 years ago. Which burnt out 80% of the island and 80% of the koalas. Oh, and by the way, that fire started way down the western end of Kangaroo Island from a lightning strike. It was controllable for several days, but the conservation people refused permission to put a dozer in, to put a control line in. So that the weather changed. And I was on Kangaroo Island when that fire burnt more than 100 kilometres down the island.
Yeah, I remember that.
It went more than half the length of the island in one night. And I remember the roaring, the flame. It was just the apocalypse.
Wow.
Well, that was caused by conservation not allowing control.
The meek have inherited the world through bureaucratic force.
Not the meek, it's the morons.
We are getting shot by helicopters soon. Yes, Carl.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's certainly on the list. Obviously on the list.
Persuasive anti-vaxxer, you, Carla. Yeah.
Psychopathic.
Right, Lovely friend. You got anything else you want to share before we call it night?
No, I reckon I'm good.
Okay, just get down here for the. Now, I don't know if Ben watches us anymore, but I'm just going down here. Where is the? I did see it here the other day. And I do hope Mark's having a good time.
Yeah, I think he snuck on the other 2 nights, but not this one.
Yeah. No, I can't find it anywhere. Oh no, what I might do is we'll go out with the epic song. So this is the epic song. Oh my God, Mark, I can't stop laughing at your reaction. It's funny, I know, devastating sometimes. Nice to lose yourself in a giggle. Vaccinating koala.
That'd kill him. That'd kill him.
They had to have a meeting where they sat down at the table and they're not allowed to laugh because, and then someone said, how about we vaccinate all the koalas? And someone at the table must have gone,
drew blood.
Yeah, and it still goes ahead. It's incredible. Okay, everybody, this is the song we wrote for Epic. 8:32. Truth shall set us free. Good luck. We're still here 5 years on. We haven't given in, but we're still caught in the eye of the insanity cyclone insanity. We're still right in the middle of it. Yeah. Take care, guys. Great to see you, Doc. Oh, thanks for 3 fun weeks. Good night.
We came down from Darwin with the dust in our veins. We drove across the Nullarbor, driven by change. There were convoys from Melbourne and busloads from Cairns, where we camped at Wodonga and fueled up at Pheasant's Nest. And there were tears of hope singing through our liberated eyes as we scrawled freedom forever across our government's lives, as we scrawled freedom forever across all our government's lives. And we didn't come to start a war, and we didn't come to hate. Instead we came to remind you that we were still your mates. And we didn't come to start a war, and we didn't come to hate. Instead we came to remind you that it was not too late. But our country had gone crazy, corrupted by fear. And before us the long path was already flooded with tears. Yet in Epic we were dancing, for we knew what we'd done. Together we'd made the birth of all our freedoms. And this new cry for liberty were the smiles in our hugs, as the cops haunted our periphery like tyranny's new thugs. But for one night in Canberra we knew we were aglow, and our luminance was shining like a beacon of hope. And we didn't come to start a war, and we didn't come to hate. Instead we came to remind you that we were still your mates. And we didn't come to start a war, and we didn't come to hate. Instead we came to remind you that it was not too late. So never forget how, by just being authentic, we drew a deep line in their cold sand, from a showground called like you've never sung before. Sing now like your soul's found its wings. Sing out like an echo through our time, until our grandchildren are born humming our lines. Until our grandchildren are born in the freedom's warm and glorious light. Until our grandchildren are born in the freedom's warm and glorious light.